We are live. What's up,
Hi.
Team Tobias? What's up, Akron, Ohio? I do Ohio a lot. Where is Akron, Jackie?
It's south of where I live. It's kind of in between Cleveland in the north and Columbus in the south, or in the middle.
I have no sense of geography, but
It's northeast Ohio.
okay. I don't even know where Ohio is in relation to me. It's somewhere in the United States, right?
Yeah, it's west, but I suppose everything is west of Massachusetts.
That's very true. Anne Rose is off today. We have questions. And there's literally one person here, and I love it. That's amazing. Share your
And I went,
referral link. I don't know what that means.
yeah, what?
There's something that says share your referral link. I don't know what that means though. But anyway, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Oh, there's 4 people now. Ooh, nice. Okay. So April AMA. This is a good question. How long do agents take to review requested work? And how long should someone wait before it's appropriate to nudge an agent who has requested work? I'm going to put this question up because now I know how to do this, I think.
And I know Kelly has some thoughts because I feel like I've heard you talk about this before.
Yeah. I actually do. Sorry, I was just putting my focus on because messages keep coming through and I want to be able to focus.
Yes,
I do have thoughts on this. Well, first of all, I can't speak to other agents how long it takes them to review requested work, but most agents have posted how long they expect them to take to review requested work. So like for me, I think I have it on there. If you don't hear from me within 8 weeks, feel free to nudge. Of course, I think that's for a query. Once I have requested a full, I don't know that I've actually, this is actually a good question. So for me, it's usually another 6 to 8 weeks to get to a full and to respond to that full. Sometimes it's faster, but I would say request or nudging, always nudge with a query. I think a lot of people think not to nudge. I am welcome nudges and encourage it. I respond to every query. Lane, you can laugh. I know that you don't, but that's okay. I know, but a lot of them also welcome nudges, and they say, they give a time frame in which to nudge. I think for me, it's 8 weeks, and then after that, I would wait another 6 to 8 weeks with your full. But as long as you're polite and professional, you should not feel intimidated at all to nudge.
And I know I have 2 or 3 fulls. I try and be within like 2 or 3 months after I get a full, and I have, I think, 2 that I haven't responded to. So if either of those 2 people are watching, feel free to nudge me, but I know I have them, and I will be reading things shortly.
Same.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about how quick you are, even though it doesn't sound quick maybe to people listening or to the average agent. But I always think of fulls like 3 to 6 months, and queries 8 weeks, 2 months. And I say this as someone who is horrific at this and still probably never responds. And I'm not bragging. I own it. I take credit for it. I know I'm horrible at it, which is why my assistant Denai, who is amazing, basically runs the inbox. And I've seen on Query Tracker comments saying, I'm not gonna query Lane because I don't want to bother waiting 3 months not to hear. And I'm like, oh, that makes me so sad, but I get it. And, it's your right. And it's my fault for not being better at it.
I would say the majority of agents have on their submission guidelines that they will not respond unless interested. And if you don't hear from me within 6 to 8 weeks, whatever, consider it a pass. I would say that's the majority of agents. So,
Okay.
And I know there's a thing now with Query Manager that if the agent doesn't respond, I think now with the new version, the author may have to manually withdraw, because I know there's some old queries from previously that I did respond to, but that were still in Query Manager. And when people want to, it is theoretically possible that if you wanted to query someone else at the same agency, Query Manager might not let you unless you physically withdraw the original query, but I'm not sure. I've just seen a few people, and that may have been older queries from the first version of Query Manager. So just be aware of that.
Okay. Yeah, they did a whole big update on Query Manager, and I've yet to figure out the rules, because I know I've seen people say they're blocked from querying me, and
it's usually because there's an old query somewhere in the system. And I think it's easier for the author to find it, because a couple of authors have said, oh, I found this old query that you had already passed on, but the system said it was still live. So then they can hit withdraw and they can send it to someone else.
Oh, okay. So then my question goes to, what if you have an agent like me who rudely does not put their, nudge or their guidelines? Because I saw also someone in Query Tracker say, oh, he hates to get nudges. And I was like, oh, I don't hate to get nudges. And then I was like, oh, wait, yeah, I always complain about getting nudges.
You do?
I think so. I mean, enough that some person was like, oh, this dude hates to get nudges. Let's not nudge him.
Well, I mean, the other thing is you can always withdraw. Like if you're frustrated and, any agent hasn't responded and you don't want to nudge them for whatever reason, you can always just withdraw the query and send it to someone else. I mean, that's not a big deal if you want to do that.
Yeah. And I do think the quote unquote slush pile is one of the most amazing places. It's like a mine. You may find coal, but you also find diamonds, because I always tell people this. I almost missed Johnny Compton because I hadn't been in my inbox in a while. I felt like, oh, I'm not doing my job. I have to go through. Let me go through. And I found that query and was like, holy crap, I almost missed this. And 6 figures later, the Spite House, Johnny Compton's on his second 6-figure deal. Penguin Random House, Spite House is getting the film treatment. And I almost missed that out of my own laziness, not being on the ball as I should have been, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on too. Like, one reason I'm behind at the moment is, I had a lot of queries come in, and then a bunch of stuff came up with existing clients, which I had to prioritize. I have to prioritize reading their work and getting stuff out and answering it, so sometimes and that's why I closed recently again, just so I can catch up. And that's why I have 2 fulls I haven't read yet. It's not necessarily laziness or disorganization. It's that we don't get paid unless we're selling anything. And so if we spent all our time in the query box, we'd be neglecting the clients we sign. So it is very much a balancing act.
Absolutely.
And it's funny you mentioned closing the queries, because I am one of those people who should close, but I don't, because I have FOMO. I fear I'm going to miss out on the next great Kelly Dykstra house, and I don't want to do that.
If you're not in your query box anyway, then you're going to miss out on them.
Right.
All right, I don't want to turn this into a lame therapy session. Okay. Ooh.
Maria says something in the chat.
That makes sense. The agent that requested my work told me she had several big projects to read from clients, so to give her some time, but I could nudge if it had been a while, so trying to figure out. Yeah, see, we get that from editors too, and it's always like, when do you nudge? And it's funny because there was a conversation going on in the agency Slack the other day, because I always nudge quickly because I'm super impatient, and my sense of timing, I'll be like, oh man, it's been months when it's really been like a month. And other people are like, yeah, I don't nudge at all until like 6 months. So I think Jackie said it was a balancing act.
Yeah.
It is. And I think it's different for every project, and it's, different based on market, what's going on in the market.
And there are some contexts too, like if you're talking to an editor about something else and they have, and you're like, oh, by the way, did you have a chance to, that's different to reaching out to say, did you read this? So, we have, like, when you're querying an agent, you're just querying a bunch of agents, but we're having conversations with editors. So sometimes it's natural to just say, oh, hey, did you see this thing? And sometimes it's like, you're not talking to them about something else. So you do have to figure out, how long does this person usually take? Would it be rude if I was to jump into their inbox right now?
Right.
Yeah. I have an editor friend, John Harlocker, and that's the right pronunciation of his name because I asked several times. I think I was just on the phone talking about something. Then I was like, hey, what about those other projects? I want an answer. And I can only say that because he's like actually just my friend. Otherwise, it'd be like, no, you can't do that. But anyway, next question. These are from... Oh, cool. people who have sent in questions. How do you search for a screenplay agent? I know I see we don't do screenplays all the times, and I don't want to waste anyone's time. Thanks. So I think, I know there's websites for screenwriters to look up stuff, people who are accepting submissions too. So, I mean, I think, and if you want, you can just go to IMDb Pro and snatch up emails. I know our literary manager, Eric Jones, does screenplays. And I think we represent a couple of screenplays. I think Anne Rose does some. Am I wrong? Am I right?
I
think Anne does. Yeah.
Because I know she reps Tom Phillips. He does scripts. Okay.
I would also say too, just to the person who wrote this question, I mean, it's not a tremendous waste of time. Like, I don't rep screenplays because I wouldn't know what to do with them. But, I'll just say, sorry, not a fit. I mean, it takes me 2 seconds to do that. So, I would suggest it's not a tremendous waste of time. And if people aren't clear about whether they rep them or not, it doesn't hurt to just say, hey, do you rep this?
And I know it's common, I think it's industry standard, that in order to submit a script somewhere, you have to fill out like a form that says, I'm submitting this knowing that if I see something along the lines similar, that you're not going to sue me, because I think in La La Land, it's much more litigious. I love that word.
Well, there is also the WGA registry too in LA. So if you're worried, I mean, this is the other side of it, right? Because, if you submit to an agent and then you sue them because you see something else come up, that's really can be problematic because you can't copyright an idea, but you can register your script or your script treatment or your outline with the WGA registry in Hollywood, which doesn't sort of provide you legal protection, but it does put other people on notice that you're submitting that script.
Yeah. I wonder if the WGA East does something like that for novels, or if the Authors Guild.
I should know that, and I don't.
Dun dun dun. That's interesting. I wonder.
Yeah,
all right.
I don't know. This is not my world.
Okay. Does it matter to an agent or publisher how long a budding author has been working on their writing? If so, how does that impact them being taken seriously or on getting a book deal? Ooh, this sounds like a Kelly question.
I don't know why, but I find it's an interesting question. I don't think, okay, when it matters is if you say something like, I got this idea 6 months ago. I wrote the book. I've revised it once and here it is. That to me shows me that maybe you're not serious about working on your craft. But in terms of like, I've worked on this book for 6 years. First of all, I don't really think that's something you need to say in your query letter. So this would come up in a conversation later on when maybe you're talking to an agent and they're interested in your work. But I don't think it really matters, except if it's too soon. In terms of I've been working on my book for too long, I don't know. I might then, again, this would be in a conversation once you're interested in the work. I might then be like, okay, so have you just been working on this, or do you have other ideas? Or, it would be a conversation, but I don't think it would be a negative for me. But again, I don't think how long you've been working on your book needs to be mentioned in your query. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, the only thing, and I'm imagining here, like this isn't inherent in the question, I'm just extrapolating. If someone's gotten very sort of tied to, because they've been working on it so long, they're really tied to, well, it has to be like this because, I've said, I could see that you could get very entrenched in the idea. Again, that would come up with the call, if an agent felt that maybe some revisions were necessary and got the sense that you weren't interested in revising, you might not be a good fit for that agent, or you might be getting a little too entrenched. But that's, interestingly, I was, if anyone here tonight is from the Bluegrass Writers conference group, I was down there on the weekend and it was wonderful and I had a great time, and hope some of them come and watch some of our podcasts. But, we had a lot of interesting discussions about things like, am I too old to break into writing? Or I've been working on this piece for a long time. Should I give it up? And, I kept saying what Kelly said. I kept saying, no, you should write what you want to write when you want to write it. That's not relevant to, there are different paths to publication. Some things you write for yourself or your family. Some things you write to get traditionally published, and you query an agent. So it's, you write what you want to write when you want to write it, and, then decide what you're going to do with it.
I often wonder if I'm too short to be a writer.
Is that a question, or are you just saying that?
That's just me saying that.
Yes, you're definitely too short.
I know. It's awful. I hate it. So yeah, I think I'm co-signing what Kelly said. I don't think you need to mention how long you've spent writing your book, especially if it's been a couple weeks or if it's been 30 years. I think common sense prevails, but my father always used to say common sense is not very common. So, and I think what gets you taken seriously is your writing, your voice.
Yeah.
And the craft, and honestly, the craft on the page gives evidence to the fact that you've take your work seriously and you've put time into learning.
Oh, okay. And this person also asks, what's the differences between large and small literary agencies in regards to authors?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. I'll let you take the lead, Kelly.
Well, I interned early on when I was getting into the business. I interned at a very large agency. Many different agents, they worked in many different fields. And I'm trying to think from a writer's perspective how that they had everything in-house in terms of their foreign rights and their film, merchandising. Some broke out. I don't know that for sure. I'm not going to say that. But I think that it just had a lot to offer in-house in terms of sub-rights. But again, there were like 20 agents who worked there, and they had assistants, and they had, it was just very much a hierarchy in terms of you had your readers and your interns and your assistant agents, and then your associate agents and your agents, and then your senior agents and executive. Anyway, it went up. You earned your way up. At the time, this particular agency did not pay salaries. Some large agencies pay salaries, and you have to earn a certain amount to earn that salary. You have to sell that much during the year to earn your salary. I think most small agencies do not do that. So we are commission based only here, which means I make what I sell, and I don't have the pressure of selling a certain amount, which would, like, I would not be able to sleep at night.
Me neither.
So there are pluses and minuses to that. I mean, especially if you need a salary to live on, but then you have to sell that amount. So so it can take a good while to build up your list to be making a certain amount to live on when you're commission based. Let's see. What else am I missing?
Which agency did you intern at? Let's be intrusive.
At the Bent agency.
Oh, the Bent agency.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think I don't even know why I'm talking, because I'm struggling to even coherently think the difference between a large and a small agency. I guess I think it's all that in-house stuff,
Yeah, they often have in-house lawyers and in-house contracts departments where, a separate person negotiates your contract, not your agent. In small agencies, we do it all. So
I also think, as part of our job, and I've had this conversation with people here, that we should be able to, I mean, it's our job to negotiate contracts, and you should know enough to do that. Like, I don't like just passing it off to a lawyer. Obviously, we have an in-house lawyer, yada, yada, but I like negotiating. And I know some people don't, but I think you should be able to.
Mhm.
Do you have anything to add, Jackie? I feel like I bulldozed you, and I don't want to bulldoze.
I think Kelly really covered it. I really just think it's personal choice, and I think probably those are questions you should ask on a call, particularly if you're talking to someone from a bigger agency and someone from a smaller agency, and you just want to know how much the agent who is like your agent is hands-on with your stuff. And does that matter to you? And how, if you're signing with a very senior agent at a big agency, are they going to be hands-on, or is their assistant going to be doing a lot of the work? In which case, are you happy? Do you know the assistant? I would just ask those questions just so you know.
Yeah, and I always tell people you could be a big fish at a little pond, or a little fish in a big pond. And it's usually in regards to please signing with me. When you pick up a new client, what does the discussion of their backlog look like? Ooh, that's a good question. If they have a number of other past projects queried unsuccessfully, how closely do you read through it? Jackie, you want to go first, since I've been picking on Kelly, I feel like?
Well, I mean, I would say it depends. You said specifically things that had been queried unsuccessfully, and once I think you mean submitted to editors. Like, if you mean query to other agents, ignore what I'm about to say. But if you have actually had projects that have gone to editors previously, that can be quite hard, because then there's the question of, if it was in the last 18 months, 2 years, even maybe 5 years, it's hard then for a new agent to take the thing and sell it unless you rejig it. If you're talking about the other thing, if you're saying, well, I've queried 4 projects to agents, and this is the only one that's landed me an agent, well, then those 4 or 5, whatever pieces, are still fair game. And it's sort of, again, this is going to depend on the agent. A lot of people would say, well, tell me about your other pieces, like give me a paragraph description of each of them, or give me some pages, give me some chapters to see which one might work in the market. And then sort of proceed from there. So you wouldn't, I think, dump 4, 5, 6 full manuscripts on an agent and say, hey, you figure out, you tell them about the projects, and then you'd say, okay, well, this one seems like it might have some legs in the market. Let's look at this one. Let's read, so I think it's very, very context specific. So I can't give you like an answer that is, yes, an agent will read 3.5 of your past projects. I mean, it's really going to depend on what they are, what the market's like, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I tend to sign a lot of people with a backlog. So there are people who have sent spreadsheets of this is what I have available. This is the rights that were sold for it, foreign rights, because a lot of people want to do foreign deals because they hear glorious stories about how much money people can make. But I know before Steffi joined us, foreign was my waking nightmare, and now I don't have to worry about it. So thank goodness.
Steffi is awesome.
Yeah, thank goodness for Steffi. Steffi is amazing, and we all love Steffi. Next one. Would an author get more or less attention at a smaller agency than a larger one? Always more at a smaller agency. Always more. That's just like a universal law.
I'm going to disagree with a caveat.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we're a small agency, so we're going to say that you get more attention in a smaller agency, but I really think that this is agent specific. And because the question is, you could be at a large agency, but be with an agent who has a small list, only 15 clients. So, or you could be at a small agency, but your agent has 60 clients. So now they also might have an assistant or two and be really great at time management. So maybe you'd still get really great attention. So I really think that what you're asking is communication, a question about communication. So I would ask, the agent that you're considering signing with, what's your communication style, and how often will I hear from you? And, I think that's.
And can I also add, because I agree with Kelly, but can I also add, because I'm a lawyer and I like definitions, think about what you mean by attention, because if you mean communication style, I completely agree with Kelly. If you mean that your agent is on the phone to you every day, shooting the breeze, then your agent is not doing the job that you need them to be doing. So, I mean, I assume that's not what you mean, but, I have clients that I don't communicate with very often if they're off writing something, or if they're in, what I might call a fallow period where they're sort of figuring out what their next project is going to be. And we're not communicating much because there's nothing much to communicate about. But, if someone's out on submission, you're communicating quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So think about, is that what attention means? Or, I just want to put that caveat on there.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good, because I went in assuming what I think of attention, but this isn't my question. So that's an interesting take, Jackie.
Well, Jessica has another question.
Oh, does she? Let me put it up. Jessica for the win. Do agents at larger, more popular agencies, that stings a little bit, I don't know, have more pull at getting deals or getting higher pay than a smaller agency's agent? I feel so triggered by this question.
Oh,
I'm going to go cry in the bathroom for a few hours.
You should not feel triggered. It's an honest question. And I think that it's actually a question that sometimes agents ask of each other.
True.
But the reality is I don't think so. Essentially, this business comes down to, it's a business of relationships, right? And so sometimes if I have had numerous deals with X editor, when my name pops up in their inbox, perhaps they open it more quickly because they know me and they know the types of, I understand their taste and they know the types of projects I send their way. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to get a higher pay. That's all negotiation. It also doesn't mean that they're going to offer. And I've had probably my largest 6-figure deal was with an editor I'd never met before. And that imprint had actually never even done a deal with Tobias. So it's not, I would say that this is not a, it can maybe seem that way, but I really don't think that, that like larger agents or more popular agencies have, get special treatment.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, my largest deal this year is with an editor I'd never met before and an imprint I'd never worked with. Mm-hmm. And the one I just closed one this week, which is also an editor I've never worked with. I've submitted to her before, but I've never worked with her before. And my client hasn't either. One thing I do, because I'm a nerd, and you might find this fun, Jessica, if you're nerdy like me, is to look at the acknowledgement section of a lot of the books you like, because the agent is always acknowledged. And one thing I noticed when I started doing more work in the sort of adult fiction, nonfiction area, because I did a lot previously, pretty much not exclusively, but almost exclusively Kidlit. Kidlit is a smaller group, so you tend to see the same agents popping up again and again. In the adult realm, when I look at the back of the book and I look at so many times there are agencies I haven't heard of or agents I haven't heard of, because it's just a bigger pool that people are swimming in. So if you want to nerd out with me, I invite you to do that, because it's very comforting. It's like it's not just the big agencies that are getting the good deals.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what everyone nailed it down. Cynthia Palaio's Ghost of Where We Are From 6-figure deal that went to Yiza, who I don't think I'd ever met before.
I had
you had, but I never had. We just happened to be at the same meeting at the same time in the same existence, Yeah.
So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. But I do feel like I wonder if it's like a catch-22. The bigger agencies get the bigger deals because they can pull the bigger clients.
I don't know if that's true either, because I have author friends who are very successful authors who have stayed with the same agent they started with at a smaller agency, and the agent may have moved to another agency, not necessarily a bigger agency. But I can think of several of my friends who are authors who have series, generally fantasy series, of course, who aren't with. I think the trick is to find the agent that understands the vision for the work, because they're the ones who are going to be able to present it to the editor in the most effective way. And, young agents at big agencies are trained in how to do that. Executive agents at big agencies have a lot of experience at doing that. And then those of us are small, mid-sized agencies, we have as much experience and training as, I guess Kelly and I have been doing this for like 7-ish years, and we interned before that. So, we have those relationships. I just don't think there are some like celebrity agents, and every time you see that agent's name, they have a big deal. But in the scheme of how many agents there are doing deals, I think that's the minority of agents.
Okay, so then what makes a quote-unquote celebrity agent?
I wish I hadn't said that term.
Oh, now I'm going to be throwing out celebrity agent left and right. I'm like, ooh, Jackie.
Well,
a celebrity agent.
Kelly will know this, and I'm blanking on her name, but Leigh Bardugo's agent.
I don't know Leigh Bardugo's.
I know who Leigh Bardugo is. Sorry?
I think if I looked it up, I would know. Oh,
you would know the name.
Right. I don't off the top of my head.
He is someone who,
I'm gonna look it up now because you're
yes, because I can't remember the name. I'm blanking, but as soon as you say it, you'll know it.
I feel like it's Susie Townsend, and I want to looks
It's not
super.
Susan Townsend.
No, it's New Leaf though, isn't it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Joe Volpe.
Joe Volpe. There you go.
Okay, there you go.
So everyone knows, in the YA.
That's of course. Now I, it's like you said, once you say it, you remember it. But
Well,
yeah.
there's this huge agent I heard about. What was her name? Kelly Dexterhouse.
Oh yes.
And Jackie Lipton. Those are the big celebrity agents. Everyone should sign with them. They will get you 6 figures, $1 million, and make me a boatload of money.
Yeah, because that's why we do it.
I know. We're in the wrong business if you want to get rich.
This is also a great question, Jessica. These are fun.
Yeah.
I think I watch too much TV and read too many books where literary agencies and publishing are part of the plot. I want to know how accurate some of the stuff is portrayed. Thanks for humoring your questions. Listen, it is so much fun to read books where an agent or an editor is the main character, and also watch movies. But some of them have been pretty good. Let's talk about American Fiction.
I knew you were going to say that. I'm totally with you.
Phenomenal movie. But there were some real, I mean, it was way over the top in terms of the acting, but there were some accuracies there. And then, what's the other one? I don't read a ton of these, but Emily Henry's Book Lovers was another one that had an agent and an editor as main characters. And that was a funny book to read in terms of looking at how it portrayed their jobs. But yeah. Yeah, it is fun. So yeah, feel free to ask all the questions to demystify the process. For sure.
Yeah. I think the most accurate one is In the Mouth of Madness. This agent goes to meet his client, and the client, well, actually, no. It's a Stephen King kind of writer, and this guy is sitting at this table with like an insurance adjuster. They're talking about a business, and then someone comes in crashing through the window with an axe and tries to kill them. And the guy who does that is the Stephen King character's literary agent. No one thinks that's funny?
No, I was actually looking up something because I have a book recommendation for Jessica if she hasn't read it. The Mystery Writer by Sulari Gentile, who's an Australian author, but she publishes with Source Books, Poison Pen Press. Yeah. In The Mystery Writer, the villain is the literary agency, and I would love it if we were making the kind of money that literary agency is making, but they're a very bad literary agency.
What do they do in the book?
Oh, I can't give it away.
Oh, I don't want to buy and read. I just want to know and laugh.
You can go and read the summary on Google, but Jessica might like it because it's a really fun book.
Okay, what's this book called again?
The Mystery Writer by Sulari Gentile.
Mystery Writer. I'm writing that down.
It's a quick read, but it's I know the editor actually, and I congratulated her on it because I enjoyed it.
Was it Mary Altman?
No.
Okay. Hi, Mary, if you're by chance listening.
I know okay. Mary's delightful. Okay, and that's good. Leads into Maria's next question. What sort of editors do you feel you have the best connections with? Not necessarily names, but examples. Easier to sell YA contemporary because of your connection center. Okay, that's actually kind of a hard, because lots of editors work on lots of different types of books. So I don't know that that's that I can answer that question myself. You guys I mean, what sort of editors do I have the best connections with? I would say Kidlit editors, but that's all I work with. So,
yeah, I think I wondered if that's for everyone, because we sell what we're, I assume, good at or what we like. So we have those connections.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing. Like, there's not much I wouldn't, sell if the work was good. But
Mhm.
there are some genres that, I am just more into than others, just as a reader. And I probably nerd out with some of those editors just because we like the same books and just because we talk about them. So, but I don't know if it impacts what I sell, because I still, if I sent a mystery or a thriller to someone who likes that kind of thing, it just might not be right for their list. And then, I've recently sold a couple of memoirs, and I do read memoir, but not to the extent I read mystery. And I've just sold 2 of them. So it's like, well, that's odd, because that's not, something that I read that much. So, it just depends.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've sold like 85 anthologies this year, and I think it's probably the first time I've ever sold an anthology. Like, I sold an anthology, and then all of a sudden I'm selling like 30 of them.
Mhm.
And I think, like you said, editors acquire such a broad range. Someone who acquires romance is also, I'm submitting body horror too.
Mhm.
Especially at Penguin Random House, like Berkeley and Dutton. I think because they publish both pretty widely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maria's new. Or Book Lovers by Emily Henry.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Is that the book where it's like the library people back in the day that are bringing books around?
No, isn't Book Lovers the 2 writers, or have I got my?
No, it's
That's
an
Beach Read.
agent. It's
Yeah,
an
that's the agent and the editor and the.
agent and an editor, and it's a romance.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. It's the agent and the. I was thinking of Beach Read.
Mhm.
And actually, one of our clients, one of Steffi's clients, has. I just read. What is it called? The big one, the big book that just came out. Not in my book.
Yes.
That's a comp to Beach Read. It's 2 writers, one of whom writes literary fiction and one of whom writes romance, and they have to write something together for their MFA class, and hilarity and romance ensue, and that's a really good one too.
That's so funny that you said that, because when I would pitch romances, I would have like, a line down like John Joe, who is a farmer, meets Jamie Oliver, who is a anti-farmer, and love and shenanigans ensue, because I was so uncomfortable having to pitch like romance, sexy stuff, and I was just like, and editors used to make fun of me because I'd get all red and embarrassed. And
well, the thing is, I don't want to give away what happens in Not in My Book, because I just read it, and that is a real, like Emily Henry, Beach Read is a hard act to follow, and this is a very similar plot, but it's very unique and very funny, and some good sexy times in there too.
Wait, is that also Emily Henry?
No, that's Steffi's client.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's right.
Katie.
Of course.
Katie Holt, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's doing very well.
I have a question here that's taking our conversation a little different, from somebody asking about switching genres, or switching readership. I would say readership. She says genre. So like going from writing like adult to middle grade, or YA to picture book, like, is that wise? And is it, and when would you do that?
When you want to?
It's tough. I would love to discourage people from it, but I mean, people write across genres all the time. And back in the day, it's interesting. I've had this conversation with a bunch of editors. They used to say, no, you need to break out in one genre. You stick to one genre, the end. And then I started noticing people saying, "Oh no, cross genre! I love cross genre." So now I think people dig cross genre. I don't know if they dig cross category.
That's interesting. In Kidlit, you do see this quite frequently where somebody is going to write a YA and then they go to do middle grade, or they start writing picture books and then they write a middle grade, or it didn't used to be that way, but you're seeing it more. I think it's best to if you have a successful debut book, to follow it within the same readership as is your first, just to get some momentum going, and then maybe once you have some momentum, you can move. It used to be that you could only do that if you publish under a pen name for one of them. So I do think the world's changing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of, well, for a while, a lot of adult writers tried YA. And now a lot of YA writers are trying adult.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. It's funny that people, I know everyone wants to do a picture book, and I say that as someone whose family has sent me every other person they know who has an idea for a picture book, and they all always come with their own art. And I'm like, yeah, no, the publisher is going to either do their own art, or, they're going to want you to find an agent who has an illustrator or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm rambling and what I said doesn't make sense. So I'm going to put up another Jessica question. Say you have an agent interested in your picture book but doesn't rep middle grade and YA. Do those babies have to die to work with that agent? This is a great question. Or do you wait for the all-around agent that reps your whole portfolio? I'm going to let Kelly take this because those are all categories she represents.
So that is a really interesting question. I would say that's a question you have with your agent. I would query widely. Like, I would query agents who do the whole portfolio, some who do picture books, whichever of your work is the most polished and you're ready to send, that's what you should be querying. But if you talk to have a phone call with an agent who's interested in your picture book, but they don't rep the other categories, then that's a question to be asked. Is there someone at their agency who would be willing then to rep their middle grade and YA? Or if not, would you carve those out of your agency agreement, and so that you would then be free to query those to another agency? There are people who have agents for their adult work and people who have agents for their kidlit work. That's not all that uncommon.
And could I just tack on to the end of that, just for anyone who doesn't know, there aren't that many agents who only do picture books. There are some, but what you're more likely to find is someone who would rep a novel, but who doesn't do picture books. So just for people who don't know that, it's so if you have a sort of a portfolio, you should agree with Kelly. Like, you certainly should send, if you can, to someone who reps everything, but it's going to be harder to find someone who focuses on picture books.
So I feel very called out because I, in general, don't do picture books. I don't do picture books, but a lot of people want to do picture books. A lot of people. I think it's a lot of people's dreams, especially people who have had kids or at one point were a kid, unlike me, who was born a full-grown man with a beard. I always tell people, we have a team here. You're signing with the Tobias team. We have lots of people who do picture books. And I lost my train of thought. I think I was trying to answer Jessica's question about.
I would also say, for the record, picture books are incredibly difficult to write. It is much more, it's a complete art form. So I'm just saying that it almost takes a different part of your brain to write a picture book than it does a novel. And so But I have no problem with people trying. I think it's really good, actually, a great thing to push yourself creatively and try new things. But I think a lot of people want to write picture books because they think they're easy, and
Right.
they are not at all easy. It's a very specific art form that you have to take just as much time to learn the craft and the skill of as you would writing a novel.
And one thing I've found, because I'm going to just tack on to everything Kelly says, I'm going to co-sign. I found that actually poets tend to be quite good at picture books because a lot of the skills are similar because of the compression and the metaphor and the imagery. So I don't at the moment rep people who write only picture books. I rep people who do other things and picture books. But two of my really good picture book authors are poets. They write novels, they write poetry anthologies, novels in verse, and picture books. And it's just, I mean, I'm not saying you have to be a poet, but I'm just saying it is a very specific skill set. And if you want to learn it, it's not a bad idea to take a poetry class at some point because some of the skills translate.
I just realized now that you mentioned poetry and picture books, I'm always talking about how people want to do picture books and I don't exactly get it. But then I was thinking, I really want a horror picture book. And I'm doing exactly what they're doing by saying I want a horror picture book. I don't know how to write it. I can't write a picture book, but I'd love a horror picture book. I would sell the hell out of a horror picture book.
There are some really good ones out.
Mm-hmm.
Really funny
and
ones.
Natasha and I have this conversation all the time, and she says there's no such thing. But I'm telling you, there was a picture book my mother read me as a kid about a alligator that eats a teacher and like masquerades as the teacher. And I was terrified of that book because I always thought my teacher was really an alligator and I was just stupid and couldn't figure it out. And then I'd get eaten.
That's funny.
True story. Okay, Maria for the win. I know Cozy Fantasy is having a big moment now. Shout out to Sarah and their Caitlin Ruzakis's Dreadful. For those of you who rep it, Sarah should be here. Are there any fave MSWL comps in that genre that you'd love to see in your inbox? I'd love to see Dreadful because New York Times bestseller, made tons of money, getting the film treatment, and I like money and I like books and I like movies.
I would say, okay, Dreadful, Assistant to the Villain, How to Be a Dark Lord or Die Trying It, whatever that book is, all really great. I enjoyed them. Well, I didn't read the last one, but I think I would enjoy it based on the title that I can't remember. I would love to see that in YA, and any of those is comps down into YA. Okay, I have a manuscript wish list that I think would be just. I would love to see a cozy fantasy that's like Downton Abbey, like the downstairs Downton Abbey, that follows all the help in a castle, like a fantasy castle. Fantasy is always focusing on the prince or the princess and saving the day and the kingdom. Like I would love to see a cozy fantasy that has to do with like the downstairs.
I might have to fight you for that, not physically, obviously, because
I said it. It's mine.
Send it to me.
That
is such a cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Someone get that to Kelly because that's awesome.
That's what I want. I've rarely put very specific manuscript wish lists out there because I just don't. Usually it's just, genres and feels and all that. But this is a specific one I would love.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Okay. I thought switching genres was why an author would have a pen name.
Yeah.
Yes. And my cousin is an author and has like 30 books and like 10 different pen names. And I never understood why until I became an agent and realized non-compete clauses exist. So Billy Joe is a horror author. And in Billy Joe's contract, it says they can't write or publish another horror book for 6 months after the next book comes out. But Billy Joe they love writing romance. So they become John Doe and publish a romance at the same time.
Yeah, particularly folks who, write fast and write well. Like a lot of people write fast but don't write well. But people who can write fast and write well, you might even need to do that for that exact reason. And you might want your non-compete clauses to say, you won't publish another blah, blah, blah under this name for this much time, but then you can publish over here under this name. I've only seen a handful of people who have to do it for that reason, but I have met people who just are very prolific and need to sort of keep identity separate to keep books coming out.
How
fast is writing? I love it.
I have a client who is incredibly productive and probably writes 3 to 4 novels a year. I can barely keep up with them.
Yeah.
And they're like solid writing.
Yeah, to me that would be fun. Like I do have 2 clients that I can think of off the top of my head who can really do that, like who can really write a full, pretty polished novel every sort of 3 months. That needs some revision, but not like they're not just throwing everything on the page. And that's amazing. To me, that's fast.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes from indie authors or authors who short stories. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just spitballing because I have a ton of authors who came up through the indies who write numerous books a year. I'm thinking Haley Piper, Cynthia Palaio. So yeah, there's some really prolific Ai Jing. There's some prolific people.
Maria, it is amazing. Yes. And then Maria is also asking, is that the first draft their hand? So what this author does is they write a first draft in 3 months. I don't see it. But then as they are revising that book, they're drafting their next book. So they're really able to write 2 books at once. And no, I don't get first drafts. A lot of times they'll send me a couple chapters in a synopsis so I have an idea. I'm always aware of what my clients are working on because I'm going to tell them time is it's a resource that we don't want to waste on writing a book that maybe doesn't have marketability. So, but they need to send me a pretty polished draft before it's ready for my eyes. But yeah, that's their process. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So we're running up on an hour, and it's Wednesday. It's been a long day, and I have a bunch of early meetings tomorrow, hopefully for many offers, for many clients with lots of 6-figure deals and movie deals. So we're going to call it a night. Does anyone have any last questions? I'm not seeing any. 3, 2, 1. Oh, you lost your chance. Oh, wait. Oh, Maria says thank you. You're welcome, Maria. Thank you for being here and asking questions. So we're not just talking to each other like chickens with our heads cut off, which is a very sad thought. I don't know why I said that. But this has been the Tobias Literary Agency Live AMA. Next one will be last Wednesday of May, 7 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what day that is. I don't have a date yet. So, Jessica, yes, please come for next month with lots of questions. You have great questions. I should get them in advance so I can study because I don't do well with
you can send them in advance. I think our social media manager puts out a call for questions.
Yes.
Yeah. So if things come up for you during the month, just follow our socials. And when Chelsea asks for questions, just throw them in there.
Yes. And I will study up and come with notes. I will be prepared so I don't look so foolish. All right, everyone, have a happy Wednesday, Thursday evening. That's tomorrow, just in case you didn't know. And see you next month.
Sounds great.
Bye.